This week I'm delighted to be joined by Gianmarco Brunetti, who is the Global Product Strategy Manager for Jaguar Landrover. Gianmarco, thanks for taking the time today. Could you give the listeners an insight into your experience, what you're involved in Jaguar Landrover, and that'll lead us on to this week's topic.
Hi, good afternoon, Terry. Thank you for having me here today. So I am a product strategy and planning manager at Jaguar Landrover with a proven history of linking commercial opportunities to product offer and corporate strategy. Today, I'm responsible for defining the commercial offering for product features, options, and attributes for all the JLR portfolio, leveraging innovations to gain market shares. Before my time in marketing, within my 10 years in the industry, between Jaguar Landrover, General Motors, and Audi, I have worked in product development, launching new vehicles in China and electrification technologies in Europe. So far, I've managed the cross-functional teams across regions and worked globally in the UK, US, Germany, and of course, Italy. And today I hold a PhD and MBA as well. I speak 4 languages at business level. I live in the UK now and I'm married.
The question is, can you speak Scottish?
I'm learning my way through it.
You'll be an expert after this podcast with me here. So that takes us on to the topic that we're going to be discussing today, which is product planning during a crisis. And what manufacturing companies should focus on. Gianmarco, could you give us an insight into what the topic is we're going to be covering?
Sure. So the aim of this podcast is to cover how to manage a manufacturing organization through crisis. Organizations of all types are feeling the pressure to simultaneously wrestle with the surviving of the immediate crisis and planning for a radically changed future. This is very true for the automotive industry, as they need to survive the COVID-19 crisis and at the same time plan for the upcoming challenges of electrification and autonomous driving. The real challenge then is how to balance the focus between the short-term challenge and the long-term opportunities. So this is what I'd like to discuss mainly today.
Good, looking forward to it. So, with most of our audience being senior leaders or managers within a manufacturing organisation, what should organisations do? So,
I refer back to my time in the business school. In 2018, I was completing one of my classes in managing organization through turnaround. And what my professor used to say is that during crisis, efficient companies actually excelled in what he called active inertia, which he described as the tendency of the companies to respond to change by accelerating activities which have succeeded in the past.
Okay.
This is normal during crisis, as a leader needs to be adaptive to deal with the extreme number of unknowns and dangers, and they sometimes could fall the victim of what psychologists call threat rigidity, which means actually freezing innovations and resorting to actions that have worked in the past rather than coming up with the new crucial approaches. So in these circumstances, business actually shall remain agile. In turbulent times, agility is essentially the capability of sizing opportunities ahead of everyone else. In fact, the variability introduced by the lack of a stable framework means that the previous rules of the game no longer apply, which means that enterprises can take advantages of this instability in the market. The auto industry, more specifically, can actually, more than ever today, is going through this tremendous change due to both the changes in technology, but as well as the changes in consumer behavior.
Yeah, and touching on your experiences within the automotive industry, but it's going to be very relevant to any industry, and I would personally say the automotive industry is a lot more advanced than a lot of sectors within manufacturing, and that's not to big up the automotive sector, because there's negatives about that as well, overall. However, the reality is this is it's relevant for any type of sector within manufacturing. And you're touching on a business being agile, and we've kind of just went the surface here. How can a business be agile in terms of their approach?
Well, thank you for the question, Terry. And what I'll say is that agility actually means doing the right thing at the right time. Although accelerating activities might make a business more efficient, that does not necessarily mean that it will make it more effective. Therefore, a different approach to problem might be required. I do remember one of my first bosses at GM, what he used to say when I was trying to resolve an engineering problem: go slow to go fast, which could sound as a paradox at the start. But what he actually really meant when is not to try to guess a solution without fully diagnosing the issue. And his recommendation to me was to spend time first to define the root cause of the problem. Similarly, I'll say today organizations should think their steps carefully before deciding their strategy and operation. So what I'll say that businesses, when sizing an opportunity in these turbulent times, should follow a 4-step framework to operate. Make sense, make choices, make it happen, and make reviews.
Okay.
What I really mean by that is that leaders should firstly agree on the situation they are analyzing. Then they should agree on priorities for their business. And then they should ensure that the commitments are maintained throughout the actions that they're taking. And lastly, they should review the outcome of their actions versus their initial subject. Okay,
interesting. And a very, very good approach actually in terms of just breaking it down there. So thanks for that, Gianmarco. It's really, really useful, that 4 steps. And coming back to product planning, what approach should a business leader apply to product planning?
What you should really think of this 4-step approach is something similarly like an attack approach. I actually learned this from one of the books from Donald Saul, where he actually was referring to the air attack approach they used during war. What you should do is first observe the situation, then you should orient and choose your direction. Finally, you need to decide and then act. This approach actually means being more agile, as each step you're actually making is in the right direction. What it means for my industry and for the automotive industry in general, that is when we decide on the future product portfolio, we should firstly confirm the current situation overall on the auto market, define our priorities for the product strategy, which strategy we want to tackle, the market, and then ensure that the necessary resources are committed to development of a product that deploys the strategy overall. And based on the outcome we get from the market, then we shall decide what to discontinue into the future.
And I think obviously a big part of this, in terms of the planning, the approach, has to be down to obviously the skills of a leader, and the leader of that manufacturing organisation. Given your experience, what skills would you say a leader should have during times like this?
I would say the leaders at first should be resilient during this sort of time, because during crisis, companies actually should try to maintain the focus on the current situation and continue to operate in an agile way. When I say agility, there are basically three types. We should reallocate resources from unprofitable projects to profitable ones. We shall catch opportunities in the core business ahead of everyone else. And we should actually size a golden cycle opportunity to propel the business ahead of our rivals into the future. So today, automotive industry in general have a call for tough decisions. So the unstable market condition overall and the threat of new entrants require companies to reassess their strategy and review also the future offering. Today, therefore, we shall carefully evaluate which technology we want to prioritize and develop into the future. Agile leaders will have to understand ahead of the competition the needs of the market for the next generation of products and what opportunities the changes in consumers' behavior reserve for car manufacturers. And then based on that assessment, reallocate resources accordingly and reprioritize what technologies to develop. Optimizing, the reason why I say so is because optimizing the operation of the business during a crisis is not enough. Traditional companies think that reinforcing their commitment on their current strategy is the right recipe to overcome a downturn in the economy. SD helps overall the organization to focus on the current activities and engage even further the people in the organization, especially the ones who actually fit within the values of the organization. But the corporate strategy applied in such times, therefore, include cost reduction, custom R&D spending, and optimization of your operation. What I'll say is that although these actions might provide benefit in the short term, they are generally not enough to overcome the crisis. I'll quote one of the examples of my industry before. So GM, since 2008, actually tried to resolve the crisis of the European division by just making their European business Opel more efficient. But these strategies do not pay out in the long term, and then finally they decided to sell its European division in 2017 at a discounted price. So often, therefore, what I say is that we will have to go the extra miles to overcome these challenges. And back to the questions on manufacturing industries, they should start going beyond what they've done before and seek opportunities for partnership with competition, third parties and government to mitigate the risk of the current crisis.
And finally, what insight can business leaders gather from their decisions that they're either made or making currently, or after listening to this podcast, actually reevaluating and making? You know, what insight could a business leader gather?
So I use something very relevant from my industry here again, and businesses at the start should listen to their customer. The time of a crisis actually gives us more an opportunity overall to listen to our customer a bit more, learn their view about the product and their needs. We constantly use the customer feedback to improve the product quality of our cars and assess the future trends. But more than ever today, customers can actually provide insights on how their needs will change into the future after this crisis. Learning their change in their behavior can actually provide companies overall the required competitive advantage. And that customer feedback could be quite important for us to understand how to plan the future products and technologies. So whenever you leaders are going to take a decision into the future on what technology to prioritize, what product to support, they should listen to their customer first before taking any decision, and then finally decide where to reallocate resources.
Great, really good insight there. And I think the good thing that we've covered there, Gianmarco, is the automotive industry is going through challenging times at the minute. Jaguar Landrover is a flagship brand, and really the way you've explained that is really straightforward and a good insight for somebody to kind of take from, because you're right in the thick of it right now and what you're doing. So I want to thank you just for your time and actually giving us that insight, because I think that'll be invaluable for someone, even if it helps one or two people in terms of when they're listening, actually thinking about it, and it makes them think more logically and clearer before making a decision. I think we've done our due there in terms of that. So thanks very much. Thank you, Gianmarco. If someone was looking to kind of reach out to you, what's the best way for someone to get a hold of you?
So, Terry, first of all, I would like to thank you for the opportunity again and having this chat this afternoon. Of course, I would recommend for everyone to reach me on LinkedIn. I'm available on social media, so just reach out to me.
Perfect. Top man. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
That was good.